Hey everyone, welcome to Disney Movie Reviews. I'm Mr. Lane, and of course, as with me as always is Mrs. Emily. And normally, Miss Emily, we do our top 5 lists on the show, and we go through that. We have a category, but today we're gonna do something a little different, and we're gonna compare 2 movies with each other and see which one we think maybe is better, or are they about the same, maybe worse. So today we are doing Lion King versus Lion King. Now, that might be a little confusing for some of our friends, but what we mean is we're comparing the Lion King that came out last summer with kind of the more realistic looking animals to the animated Lion King that came out when me and Mrs. Emily were kids.
1994.
So, yes. So it was about the same time we were young. So we're gonna compare those two, kind of see which ones maybe we like better in some points and maybe we think is worse in certain points. So I think it'll be interesting though, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So if you have a favorite at home, make sure to let us know in the comments on our Facebook page. But I think without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So we will start with kind of the story, Miss Emily. And so comparing the two stories, they're pretty much the same.
Yep, they didn't change much.
They really did not change almost anything about the story from the animated one to the live action
Which I appreciate.
one. And that's what I was about to ask. Do you like that about it, or do you think maybe that's a little bit boring because it's the same movie?
I like it because it's such a good story that I'm like, you don't really need to change too much. I can, in my head, think of a few changes, which we might get into when we talk about characters. I think they changed one thing about Scar that just makes him more menacing, I feel like, in the live action than in the original animated. And then just some character differences, but story-wise, I think everything is the exact same, and I like it that way.
Okay.
What about you?
So for me, kind of with all these new movies that Disney's making, like remaking the old movies, I always like when they change at least a few things throughout it. Like Beauty and the Beast, they changed a few different things. Aladdin, they changed a few different things. I mean, the core story is still there, but they add or change certain things that help it to make maybe a little bit more sense, like from the animated one. So for me, it did make it a little bit more boring, that it was kind of pretty much the exact same movie. But like you said, there were some small things that I thought they did really well. And you said Scar. I actually thought the story of Nala was a little bit more fleshed out in the live action one, and I enjoyed that. When I watched it again, I was like, wow, she actually has more of a storyline in this one rather than just being Simba's friend.
Right.
That ends up becoming, the queen, like at the end of the movie or whatever.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, it's been around for 20 something years.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like, it's older than me, so and I'm old, so, but yeah, so Nala, like, they changed her a little bit, so I do like that part of it, but yeah, for it being kind of the same movie pretty much, it did make it a little bit more boring when I watched it by myself. When I went with my friends the first time, we were just having fun because it was like, the Lion King's back out, like, that's awesome, But yeah, after watching it again, I kind of found myself playing on my phone a little bit more than I was actually like glued to the screen watching it. So I guess story-wise, we have to give it to the animated version, right? Because it's the same story. So I guess that we give a point to the animated version for that. So the animated version's got one whole point to it. So what do we want to talk about next, Miss Emily?
Which maybe this is a little nerdy. I would like to talk about the visuals.
Okay, the visuals. Okay.
And I think just in a world where Disney is making a lot of different live actions, you kind of have to compare the two. And I would say I love the visuals in the live action. I thought that they were gonna make it all weird with like it looking like an actual animal and then talking. I thought they did a great job with their lips like barely moving and not making it kind of tacky or corny. I thought they did a super good job on that aspect of it, and I just liked it. It's funny because even though lions are cats, the live action Simba and all of that, they reminded me of my dog Josie, and so I was so happy just seeing them just look like real animals. It just added an element to me that I just really loved.
I get that, and it is fun to kind of see how they use the real animals to get that point across, because it's like, you kind of always wondered, would real animals do these things, you know? But for me, I kind of don't like that aspect of it. I don't like them being real per se, because especially with the eyes, you can't get as much emotion from it. Like when, you know, Mufasa and Simba have these really big emotional moments at the beginning, I feel more emotional when I'm watching the animated one than the live action one, because I can see it in the face more. Of course, that also comes with it being hand drawn, probably, than, you know, CGI or whatever. But yeah, like, I don't know, for me the animation one just wins for me, because I like seeing that emotion. And let's be honest, for it being an animated movie, like in the 90s when technology was not
pretty good,
that great, like, that's a pretty stellar
great
animation. So for me, I think I like the animated version a little bit better when it comes to the visuals. So
we will agree to disagree.
We're at a wash there, so we won't give a point to either one, because we both are on either side of the fence. But I think we might be able to land on an agreement for this next part when we talk about the music of both
I think so
movies, because the music is pretty much the same.
Yes.
Once again, they use a lot of the same songs.
Yes, sadly, they cut a song that I consider to be one of the strongest songs of the movie in favor of a new song sung by Beyonce. And I get what they were doing. They were trying to name drop, and I mean, it worked. What they were trying to do, it worked. People were buzzing about this movie because of Beyonce.
Yeah.
It was a mistake. It was a mistake to cut that song. Yes. And then even they like cut it, but then decided not to and made it what it ended up being. And I'm like, I'd rather you just cut it if you're gonna make it that, in favor of which Spirit. It's a good song. You could have made the movie without it.
Yeah, no, I don't feel like
it didn't add value.
I feel like that added anything to me.
Added nothing.
And I agree, and we'll address the elephant in the room. The song is Be Prepared. I mean, that song
it's so good.
Slashed in the new movie, and it's so good in the animated version.
My favorite one.
That, like, it's just like, come on, if there's any song that you were going to keep, you needed to keep that song.
One.
That set up the whole premise of what Scar was going to do, and they just lessened it so much.
And I get that it's like that song doesn't really fit which I'm jumping ahead to characters, but animated movie Scar and live action movie Scar, in my opinion, are different Scars.
Yes.
He is way more intimidating and menacing in the live action, and he is just kind of like suave and smooth, still evil, still very evil, but just that song fits the animated Scar more, which makes sense because those songs were written for that movie, not the live action. But doesn't matter, because Be Prepared is just really good. It's just really good.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This should have been the one song that they kept
for sure
in the movie above all the other songs.
And I think Circle of Life and I Just Can't Wait to Be King. I don't know as much about I Just Can't Wait to Be King, but I feel like Circle of Life was literally like a shot-for-shot remake. I don't think they changed anything about it.
I will say something that makes it more fun is when you watch it on Disney Plus and they change the first part of it at the beginning to where it's not in English on you, and then you're just watching it going, wow, this is a completely different song than I remember, and then you realize it's because it's not in English, and so you change it back to English and everything makes more sense after that. But yes, it is the exact same opening and with the song too. So, but I like that you said something about the characters, Miss Emily, and how those songs line up with each other, because that's the last kind of category to talk about with these movies is the characters that are in them. So I think we'll give a point to the animated movie for the songs, but what about the characters? Like
the characters. Okay, I feel like Mufasa was probably the same. I mean, they use the same voice actor, so
because you can't replace him.
That's good there. I like animated Scar better. I just do. However, live action Timon is so good. And I've probably been talking about this all week since we decided this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I love Billy Eichner so much. He is the voice of the live action Timon. And not to discredit the voice actor for the original Timon, he also did a super good job. But the live action Timon just really shines to me. He just adds these little extra lines that I just think make his scenes really good. But because of that, I think what any scene that he is with Simba is not the star of that scene. It is Timon. Which, whenever you're the main character, you kind of need to be the star of the scenes that you're in. But I just don't think there's anything you can do about that because you can't keep them down. So, a little half and half. But I would say I would still probably go with the animated.
Okay.
Mainly because of the Scar pull.
Yes.
They just made him super different in the live action, and I didn't really like it.
I get that. For the live action, I think what it has going for it is Zazu is better in my opinion in the live action.
Yes.
I just think he's funnier. It's not necessarily the voice or anything, but I just think as a character he's funnier in the live action one. I think that I talked about Nala earlier. I think Nala's a much more interesting character.
Yes, agreed.
In the new movie rather than the old one. But I will say, young Simba got on my nerves in the new one. And I mean, he gets on your nerves a little bit in the first one too. But I feel like he's even more obnoxious in the live action one. And maybe it's just because Jonathan Taylor Thomas did a really good job in the original movie of like portraying young Simba. But I don't know, I just think like if I had to pick, I feel like the new young Simba is not very good. What was else I was gonna say? But I've had friends who told me they don't like the new Simba as much with Donald Glover, just because they just didn't feel like it lined up very well. But I think it was a really good job by him as well, providing that voice for Simba. And so for me, they're kind of a wash. I think they're both good. Both the animated and the live action voices are good. Obviously Nala with Queen Bee. Beyonce is awesome, and I can't even really name the original voice actor for Nala. So that one for me is kind of like, well, I think I have to give it to Beyonce because I know who's actually voicing her. But I think I agree with you though. I would rather have the old Scar than the new Scar.
Yeah.
And I would rather have the old Pumbaa than the new Pumbaa, but I agree with Timon. I love new Timon. I think if we could maybe merge these two movies together and keep the parts that we like and throw out the parts we didn't like, we would have the best version of the Lion King. But I think we give it to I think we're giving all the points right now to the animated one. And maybe that's just us being old. Yeah. You know, maybe that's just us being old growing up with that one rather than seeing it in the theater for this past summer. But yeah, I guess the animated movie for this one wins our little debate here. I mean, do you have any final thoughts on the movie, Miss Emily?
I mean, I appreciate that they made the live action because it just was a very nostalgic experience for me. It made me realize how much I loved The Lion King, the story, and I don't want to hate on the live action one because it was really good. And I think the purpose of the live action is for us to remember how much we love the original and just give some new outlook on it. And I like it, so I appreciate it, but love the animated, and I just love The Lion King.
No, I agree with what you said, and then I also think a cool thing is it introduces The Lion King to maybe some of our younger friends out there who may have not seen the original one, or maybe this helps them to like The Lion King better because it's a new movie that came out for them to go to the theater and watch rather than have it on DVD or Disney Plus. So I think there was some good things that the live action one did too, but yes, animated will always win in my mind. And if any of our kiddos out there know Mr. Tim, Mr. Tim's favorite Disney movie is the animated Lion King. So you can always go up and give Mr. Tim a big high five and let him know that you like the animated version too, right? Yes, that's exactly right. But if you do like the live action one, that's
okay,
totally
too.
fine too. You're entitled to your own opinion. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Disney Movie Reviews.
Yay.
If you have an idea for something that you want me and Miss Emily to talk about, make sure to leave it in a comment on our Facebook page. But other than that, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel and keep up with all the fun videos that we're doing here at Kids Life. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.